Alright guys, of course, with this NFL regular season over, it's about that time where coaches start getting canned. We've already had 3 of them. I'll talk about some other stuff. Let's get right into it. Yeah, NFL head coaching cycle 2024. Let's go through what's happened so far and, of course, potential new stuff. Let's go, though. NFL head coaching cycle 2024. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Final NFL. Of course, please like and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the 2024 NFL head coaching cycle preview / what the hell's happened so far. It's just going to be basically me ranting about all the head coaching jobs, who that are candidates legitimately be head coaches. Of course, before the playoffs, considering, again, it's going to get really crazy in a couple days. But obviously, there's a lot of stuff to go through. Again, the offseason has started for 18 of the 32 teams. Again, I'll get through all of it. I'll go through all this, all the openings for every single team. Guys that are more realistically to be the head coaches. Of course, speculation as well. My opinions on those as well. Again, we don't know. Again, there really haven't been. Again, no one's been hired completely yet. We'll obviously get to that when we get to the offseason as well. But this is just basically going to be the beginning. I'm just going to basically go through who I think is going to get hired and stuff like that. But obviously, we'll see what actually happens. I'll have a recap of that later in the I guess the offseason, of course, probably somewhere around the conference championship week again. After all those hires are made, of course, though, what is it called? Tomorrow will be the power rankings for every single NFL team. Again, mention this. This is more going to really get into the nitty gritty. So tomorrow, I'm just basically going through the teams and just kind of reviewing all this stuff. But obviously, again, power ranks tomorrow. Friday will be the hype video to the playoffs, and obviously Saturday will be the preview for all the playoff games. But again, that's really what I got set up for the next week. But until then, let's get right into it. Starting out with the Atlanta Falcons. What a season they had! Of course, they fired their head coach. Alright guys, of course, with the Falcons, they finished their 2023 NFL season at 7-10 after a rough, very disappointing year. Of course, they made some big signings in the offseason, signing guys like, I don't know, Jesse Bates, for example. Guys like him, obviously, they also signed David Onyemata, Calais Campbell. So, defensively, they made some big upgrades, but it was obviously to no avail, considering they gave up 41 goddamn points. We're not counting that Jameis Winston going rogue thing. But yeah, that's really what happened with them. Obviously, it was not good for the Falcons. But obviously, again, it was a rough year overall, very disappointing. And yeah, again, Arthur Smith, again, the big thing with him was basically after, again, they got completely blown out. We'll get that in a second. The real issue with him, again, he did get fired. The Falcons, of course, after this really disappointing season. 3 straight 7-10 seasons. It was very disappointing for him. Again, first year was pretty surprising. They actually went 7-10 because, again, you look at the year before that, of course, that being 2020 for the Atlanta Falcons, they completely sucked. That's just complete truth about it. So the fact that he did go 7-10 2 years ago was pretty cool. 2022 though, 7-10, I guess, kind of made sense. And then obviously this year they were supposed to win the division, and they didn't. So yeah, of course he never really had a quarterback though, so I guess that's the one thing you could say about him. I mean, Matt Ryan wasn't actually the worst guy he could have had, but again, he was regressing really a lot. So I'm not too mad about Arthur Smith. Again, that's really the only excuse you have for him because again, he underutilized their receivers a ton. And also, again, getting outscored 31-0 after halftime. We'll get that to happen as well as getting raging on Dennis Allen in the post game. So again, he gets fired. They have a lot of interesting stuff to do. Again, 3 7-10 seasons offensively. Again, and they never really had a great offense. Again, You look at it, again, he was an offensive coach. The only thing they actually were able to do really at all was run the football with him, which, again, is a good thing. Again, they were 10th and 4th in yards per attempt in 2022. That was probably the best thing he was able to do, but their defense never, again, this year they were pretty decent. But overall, that was really the one problem with Arthur Smith, and obviously it didn't end well for him. And again, it was just, again, underutilizing guys. He never really had the locker room for sure. No one really wanted to actually play for him. It was a complete mess with him as their head coach. So with that said, who the hell is going to be their head coach? Of course, there's a lot of speculation about these guys who can be who are going to be hired. So, first things first, Bobby Slowick would be a guy I could definitely see it coming here. They need a guy who just straight up can be a dog as an offensive coordinator. Again, it's not the most attractive option in the world. It's pretty attractive, but it's not the most. Again, the real problem is they don't have a top 5 pick, so they can't draft the quarterback they want. They could definitely trade for one, considering they have some guys in the roster that are pretty valuable. Like, I wouldn't put it out of the imagination they trade Kyle Pitts for a top 5 pick. Yeah, I wouldn't put that out. I would say that's probably possible, but Ben Johnson, obviously, is the most sought-after dude, but again, we don't know about him until the Lions lose in the playoffs, or who knows, maybe they win the Super Bowl. But Ben Johnson is definitely the biggest guy in the market right now. Will he be, hired by the Falcons? I'm going to say less likely than yes, because again, so many other teams want him, and again, I don't know, the Falcons just don't seem great with him. Bobby Slowick is definitely a very attractive spot for him, though, because, again, he's a guy 1 year out. Again, I wouldn't say he can't come back, but, again, for a guy who's had some pretty good history with, what is it called, the schemes that the Falcons like to run, especially with the personnel they have, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes there. But, again, the big thing with him, it would have to be, I get the offense. Brian Johnson, this is a guy who, again, he could be hired. I would doubt that he'll actually be an offensive head coach next year, but he could definitely be, honestly, I might say he could be their offensive coordinator next year, which sounds crazy, but the run game that, again, he's able to have, if they're able to, again, incorporate Bobby Slowick's, again, what is called, passing scheme with Brian Johnson's running scheme, which can be promising at times, even though, again, no motion. But the blocking he does design for the Eagles' offensive line was very good this year. Again, I get the fact that, again, they were terrible this year. Again, not terrible, very frustrating offensively. They don't use motion. But, again, Bobby Slowick can incorporate that with, again, the play-action crossers game, as well as, again, Brian Johnson being able to use that running game. That would be a very good combination if they get both those guys on their coaching staff. Todd Monken, I would not say he's going to go here, guys. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to – I mean, maybe he'll be the Falcons coach, but I just don't see it because, again, they're just not – they don't have that top 5 pick yet. Unless you get the whole entire reins of it, I don't see it. Frank Smith is a little interesting, but I'm not going to say that's too likely. Brian Callahan, that could happen, but I'm going to be honest, he'll probably stay as Bengal there. Drew Petzing definitely could be hired. I wouldn't say too likely just right now. Sharon Waldron, another guy who could be hired. Again, their offense has been inconsistent this year, though. Dave Canales, well, this dude, I would probably say won't get hired. Eric Bieniemy, obviously, well, he's here every year. Mike Kafka, obviously, their defense is playing really well, but we'll see. This dude, I'm going to be completely honest, I've only heard about him once. He's pretty good, but the offense, offensive line, I really don't know about him just right now. Obviously, though, all these guys as well, these are defensively, too. So, but I don't think, I'm going to be completely honest, guys, I really don't see the Falcons going as a defensive guy, because, again, their defense is fine. They have their DC. And, of course, no one's going to hire the Falcons DC, because, again, they just fired their head coach. Maybe they even move up with the Falcons DC. But right now, guys, again, they just fired him. Again, I could definitely see guys like Ben Johnson and, what is it called? Not Ben Johnson, my bad. I'm blanking. Holy crap. But Bobby Slowick and Brian Johnson will be very interesting choices for the, what is it called, Falcons in the offseason, of course. We'll see if they do hire him. Again, we'll get to the rankings probably around what it's called after Pro Bowl week. But with that, let's get to our next team, of course, being another NFC South team in the Carolina Panthers. Of course, our next team will be Carolina Panthers, of course, finished the 2024 NFL season at 2-15, of course, with their interim head coach. They have the worst possible situation because no one's going to want to go to this team. That's just simple truth about it. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. The Panthers are going to have a hard time finding a guy who really wants to be their head coach. But again, if they give him the reins, again, David Tepper stops getting on their butts and says, I'm going to run this team, because that's just, it doesn't work like that, David. I'm sorry. He's the worst owner in the league, too. So that's not always good if you're, again, a guy coming in here. And you probably got to have, a little patience if you are going to be the next coach of the Carolina Panthers. Of course, they don't have any sort of draft capital at all. And the guy they started with at the season, of course, that being Frank Reich, only got through 11 games because, of course, they went 1-10 after a ugly loss, 17-10 to the Titans. They, David Tepper there, Dan Snyder-like owner, decided to, just pull the plug on him. And now they are in a very weird spot. Of course, they traded all their good players, and then, of course, they drafted Bryce Young. Of course, they fired their GM. They've done a lot of stuff, and, of course, it has not worked out. They are the worst franchise in the league right now. It is not good if they're a head coach for any head coach situation. So, who the heck do I think is going to come here? Well, let me be completely honest, guys. It's got to be John Harbaugh, which sounds a little crazy, but just completely honest, guys. That's who's going to be their head coach. Because who the hell else is going to be able to fix the team? Which sounds crazy. Again, I don't think John Harbaugh would ever want to be the Panthers head coach. But guys, he's really the guy who I think can turn this team around. He did it with the Niners. I don't know why he can't do it again. Again, part of the reason he left was because of that. They got so bad. But again, if he's able to build this team up and build what he wants, I think they could be very good with him. But again, David Tepper said that give him a ton of money. And also, guys, it's got to be, again, it would be very hard to get John Harbaugh, but I really think he's the dude for this team because, again, they need someone to just completely, blow things up. That could happen. And, of course, if they were going to get a guy, I think Zero Evero would be a good guy to get back. Of course, he is their defensive coordinator. There we go. Of course, he's been good, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they just said, screw it. He'll just be our coach, which I wouldn't be too mad about either. Again, he'll figure things out. Honestly, I think he would be able to win games. But then the offense, what the hell's up with them? That's why you'd want a guy like John Harbaugh, who's, again, an offensive head coach, who can figure out a way to basically revolutionize this offense into something, somewhat respectable. Because right now, guys, that's simple truth. It is. And, again, the Panthers are just complete trash. And, of course, they need a head coach. John Harbaugh would be the best option, but will they get him? Probably not. But we'll have to wait and see, obviously. But definitely the big thing I'd say with him is, obviously, a guy like, what is it called? Ajiro Evero, their DC, would be a very good guy just in-house to get this team going. He might not be their head coach in a couple of years, but, again, he can just get this team going, get them some with more fight, which, again, might seem a little weird. But, again, if they can get him as their, it would be a lot easier, basically, for them. Because, again, they don't have to do too much with that. But, again, David Tepper, he knows Ajiro Evero. He wanted to come to Carolina. He does have some pieces. Again, as long as he can keep them, it should be good. Obviously, they need a GM, too, but that's a completely different topic. With that said, time for our next team, that being the Vegas Raiders. Of course, with the Raiders, they fired their head coach after Week 8, that being Josh McDaniels. That was a terrible head coaching hire, and obviously you said this is a job opening, but it's pretty simple for the Raiders. They got to bring back their guy, Antonio Pierce, who made this team somewhat respectable through the last 9 games of the season. Of course, finished with a 5-4 record. After that 3-5 start that Josh McDaniels led them on, obviously their offense looked a lot better and a lot more efficient with them at times, not always, with Antonio Pierce as their head coach. But actually the biggest thing with them, this defense played really hard, and of course when you saw before that, you just didn't see that. Like Marcus Peters, he was not hustling in practice, stuff like that. They cut him because of it. Like they got their guys. Antonio Pierce is a no business dude. He wants to get this team going, obviously, and he's gonna be their head coach next year because you'd be freaking stupid for doing the same thing you did with Rich Bisaccia. Obviously, that team, of course, that being the Raiders in 2021 was a more talented team than this team was. But guys, you gotta realize the Raiders, what is called under Rich Bisaccia, were able to make the playoffs, which is just completely crazy for this Raiders team. So again, Antonio Pierce has to be back, and he's what is called. Kind of brought together a culture. I'm not going to say totally because, again, we don't know yet. But he's got something going here, and they got to let him continue to do it because, again, if this team's going to be successful in 2024, it starts with Antonio Pierce. Bring him back, guys. Again, you see what happened with Josh McDaniels. He'll probably be going back to the Patriots as their OC. Honestly, they might want to consider a new what is called secondary coach because those guys are super undisciplined. So that's really all I got for the Raiders, guys. Again, it's Antonio Pierce, or you guys are idiots. Of course, that being Mark Davis. But until then, let's get into the Chargers. Of course, they are the most attractive free spot. Chargers, I think it's probably two different dudes because again, they have obviously the most attractive out of any of the coaching options. Because of course, the Chargers were not supposed to go 5-12 this year. They had some bad injuries. Of course, their season was tanked after Justin Herbert broke his thumb. Obviously, he broke his other, I think it was his index finger, of course, on his left hand. But again, with a franchise quarterback, you really can just go any which way you want as an NFL team. Obviously, again, the Detroit Lions in 2018 were another team like that. Here's the difference, though. They have a lot of talent. Obviously, a guy like Austin Eckler probably won't be on this team for a while. So, again, there are definitely positions that are in question. Like Keenan Allen, he's older. But Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, again, I still think you can keep around for a couple more seasons. Yeah, Khalil Mack maybe not as much, but Keenan Allen, again, he's getting up there in age. He can still be productive because, of course, he had a very good season. You still have a guy like Mike Williams. Don't forget about him. Obviously, though, Quentin Johnson, again, they got to get a guy in here, again, wide receiver coach, who can figure out how to get him open, because he's just simply not getting open. Again, and just looking at the Chargers the last 3 years, it's just been a complete freaking disaster with Brandon Staley as their head coach. 2021, 2022, 23, one of your put it. This defense never really had any sort of, like, consistent success. Of course, they really had, in their offense, obviously, was unbelievably annoying as well, but very talented football team. They've had this really ever since 2017, to be completely honest. There was a time in 2020 where they were a young, youthful team. But again, they missed their window in 2022. That was their best chance because, again, they had a lot of good chances, despite, again, having a lot of injuries. Again, going into this offseason, they've got to find someone, again, whether it's Bill Belichick, John Harbaugh, one of those two guys, presumably, or maybe even Ben Johnson. Who the frick cares? Honestly, an offensive coach might be better for this team because, again, their defense, they just got to find someone who can know what the hell they're doing and not have to manage the whole damn team. So, Todd Monken, that would be a very good guy for them. But I'll be honest, guys, I really don't see why he'd want to leave Baltimore. Was it basically having it made for him? For, again, his offense, he wouldn't have to leave. So, I would not be surprised there. Ben Johnson is definitely interesting. Again, he's the top guy. Bobby Slowick, maybe, but again, I don't think, again, they don't run the ball the way he wanted them to. Brian Johnson, no way in hell. Frank Smith, maybe. That's definitely interesting. They would probably want to incorporate a little more motion and get some stuff going. I did Brian Callen, definitely a little interesting too, but again, he probably wants to stay with Joe Burrow for another season. I wouldn't say that's out of the question. Drew Petzing, also a very interesting guy. He again, very good run game coach. Honestly, I think that would actually be very, very beneficial for that Chargers defense. So again, one of the most attractive options in the league. Of course, they fired Brandon Staley after that 5-9 start. But again, if you're a Chargers fan, you want either, again, Bill Belichick coming here is obviously the most sought after scenario. But will that happen? I'm to be honest, not too likely. But again, if it does, that would be huge for you guys. Again, just have a coach that knows what the hell they're doing. Again, with a guy who had for the last 3 years, I really think you guys deserve something. Obviously, being a Rams fan, so. Again, Chargers, rough season, but again, if you guys get that, and maybe, just maybe, I don't know, give a ton of money in that being Dean Spanos, you guys have a shot at doing something next year. But with all that, let's get right into the Titans. Of course, they just pulled off a freaking stunner. And that stunner being the firing of their, what is called superstar coach Mike Vrabel. Don't ask me why the hell they did this. I really don't get it. I mean, again, moving on, I get it. Again, we have 6 years. Again, we haven't been good the past 2 years. Again, moving on, like stuff like that. Again, they're flipping the page. I get that, but Will Levis liked Mike Vrabel as head coach. Like, he pushed him. You watch what is called Will Levis this year. He looked a lot more focused than he looked any other year of his college career. Again, I think they would have really developed him well. Again, I'm be honest, guys. Mike Vrabel's a great coach, great coach, but I'm shocked this happened because, like, guys, it's Mike Vrabel. Like, why the hell would they fire him? But then again, this might be beneficial for them in the future. But if you're Mike Vrabel, you're going to New England. Like, why wouldn't you go to New England? Like, that's simple, guys. Like, again, Bill Belichick might stay, but Mike Vrabel's got to go up there. If you're him, again, you again, maybe not the head coach. We'll see about that. Really don't know just yet, but Mike Vrabel would definitely be the good guy to carry on that dynasty again. If they can, they're not, again, it's over, but again, if you can maybe bring it back, that would be something you definitely want to watch out for. But off of Mike Vrabel, for the actual Titans, I mean, they can probably go any way they want to because, again, their defense is still talented. Eric Bieniemy might be a guy they actually get because, again, this offense really just hasn't had that firepower or that creativity really ever since 2020 when Arthur Smith was their OC. But, again, they just need a guy, again, an offensive coach would be nice because that's really when they have had their most success. Their defense, I think, will be fine, though. Again, they always have an in-house coach that is able to replace whoever gets hired by a different team. But if you're Eric Bieniemy, I'd want to go there. So that is very, very, very interesting there. Maybe Drew Canales could get hired, but that is a stretch there. But I definitely could see Eric Bieniemy being the Titans head coach at the beginning of the year. Will he be? Maybe not. But again, we'll see. That's probably the one guy, though, I'd say. Because, again, the Titans, they completely fire him. They got all the money in the world, too. It'll be very interesting to see what they did. Again, big mistake firing Mike Vrabel, but again, they make up for it with a guy who can, I don't know, keep this team up, kind of relevant, and also get some guys in here that can actually make this offense somewhat good. That's what the Titans want to do this offseason. Now let's talk about the Commanders, who definitely have a very interesting approach here. Last team we'll talk about today is the Washington Commanders, who of course fired Ron Rivera after 4 seasons as their head coach. Of course, they didn't have a single winning season. They were 500 last year. All their years had a lot of frustration, a lot of losing. Of course, they did make the first year. They did make the playoffs and won the division in that tank season. Of course, that being the COVID season as well. But yeah, Ron Rivera didn't really ever seem to have any sort of again, motivations for this team. Again, he made a lot of stupid decisions over the 3 years that this team wasn't successful. Of course, this year they were god awful. He took over their defense, and they sucked. Of course, they lost their last 8 games of the season. They were one of the worst defenses I've seen in the past 5 years. So, again, with that, again, they did hire, what is called Golden State Warriors GM Bob Myers, as well as Vikings former GM Rick Spielman, to try to find a GM for this team, which, again, finding a GM for a former GM, kind of confusing, but that's what they're going to try to do there. As a coach, though, I'm going to be honest, guys, again, they can go a lot of different ways. I'd want to go defensive coordinator for them, though. Again, offensively, they'll figure something out. I mean, Eric Bieniemy's still there. If they can convince him to say who they'll make him their head coach, would be really good. But they need some sort of defense coordinator. Mike McDonald, again, he could very well be hired, but that's going to take a little bit because that is a very, very, very ugly defense right now. There's no talent on that defense right now. Raheem Morris would be very interesting too. Again, he could get Caleb Jane Daniels in that locker room for sure as well. Again, they have the number 2 pick in the entire NFL draft, so they could do a lot with that. Again, honestly, I think Raheem Morris would be very good. He is a very, very, very good defensive coordinator, and he knows what the hell he's doing, too. Brian Flores, again, that would be very controversial. Aaron Glenn, obviously, his defense has been shaky, but he is a guy who could bring some oomph to your team, obviously. Patrick Graham would be good, but then again, he hasn't had as much success. Steve Wilkes, again, that could be risky. Jim Schwartz would be nice, too. Again, there's a lot of defensive coordinators they could hire. Raheem Morris, I think, would be the best for them, because, again, he's just a guy who will keep this defense from sucking. So, yeah, again, offensively, honestly, they might, again, I think they could afford to get rid of someone, because then Jane Daniels, get your, again, offensive coordinator in there, something like that, I don't know, from college. Figure something out with that, again. You don't have, it doesn't have to be, again, some, drastic head coaching hire. They just got to figure out someone who can help the defense, whether that's a new defensive, again, a defensive coordinator convincing a new one, or again, getting him to be the head coach and figure out an OC to switch teams, or just straight up convince Eric Bieniemy to stay. Because again, at the very least, that's what you want to do. That's one thing that they're going to be able to do over this cycle is the Commanders to keep Eric Bieniemy. That would be great for them because again, offensively they'll be set. Just figure out and get a head coach overall to help out that defense and just be somewhat okay. But obviously, that is all I got for this 2024 NFL head coaching cycle preview, kind of, I guess. Of course, we'll be grading all the hires when they all happen, basically, which will probably be right around after the Pro Bowl. But until then, again, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Basically, the preview for this. Again, kind of, not really. But again, that's just speculation. Again, Patriots, again, they could very well have Mike Vrabel as their head coach soon as well. And again, also the Bears are a good team to watch out for considering their head coach has only won 10 games in 2 years as their head coach. Very interesting to watch out for, but that's all I got for you guys in this one. See you for the power rankings tomorrow, but until then, enjoy your night.
Makes that throw. And he fakes. He fires for the end zone. Hayden Hurst, and that's a Falcon touchdown. But he thought of something he hadn't thought before. Throw it to Hayden Hurst. And, whoa, I see green. What do you think?
I see green on there, and it's not the Grinch. That's a nice job. Hurst working his way across the formation.